everyone, today's Bible story can be read in Judges chapter 6 to 8. So 3 chapters, and we're going to look at the story of one man called Gideon. Gideon didn't consider himself to be brave and mighty, but with God he did brave and mighty things. Let's have our story. Gideon was an Israelite. The Israelites were in a bit of a pickle. You see, the Midianites had been attacking them, stealing their crops and their supplies, and keeping them oppressed. But Gideon was a bit crafty. You see, to this day, he was hiding in the winepress, and there he was threshing wheat. Not a normal job to be done in a winepress. That's why you make wine. But Gideon was sorting out his wheat, trying to keep it safe from the Midianites, when he looked over to the oak tree, and there was the angel of the Lord. The angel of the Lord spoke to him and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." "Pardon me," said Gideon. "If the Lord is with me, why are all these bad things happening?" And he began to tell the angel of the Lord all about the Midianites and how they were oppressing the nation. The angel of the Lord spoke again and said, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior, and he will use you to save Israel from the Midianites." "Pardon me," said Gideon. "Don't you know? I'm the wimpiest wimp out of all the wimps. You see, my family is the weakest family, and my clan is the weakest clan, and my nation is the weakest nation, so that makes me the weakest weakling of all the weaks." But then the Lord spoke and said, "I will be with you." It wasn't the angel of the Lord that time, it was God himself. "I will be with you and save the Israelites from the hands of the Midianites." And that changed everything. Gideon went away. He left that place, and then he began to see if it really was God that spoke to him. You can read a bit more about that in Judges chapter 6. Make sure you do later on. Well, some time passed, not that long, and then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon. And Gideon rose to his feet and blew his trumpet. He blew it loud and proud. And he shouted to the people, "It's time to rise up. God's called us to fight the Midianites. If you want to be in the army, men, come and join me." You see, in those days, only the men were in the army, not the ladies. Well, amazingly, 32,000 men gathered together from the Israelites, and they all wanted to be in Gideon's army to fight the Midianites. They'd all had enough of the Midianites. Well, Gideon looked, and I'm sure he thought, wow, 32,000, that's a good number. But then God spoke, and he said, "Gideon, there's too many people in your army. Tell them if any one of them is scared, they have to go home." So Gideon called the army together and he said, "Look, men, if any one of you is scared, you just have to go home. It's okay, you can leave the army." 22,000 of them went home. 22,000! 10,000 remained. Gideon looked, and I imagine if I was Gideon, I would have thought, "Oh, it's okay, there's still 10,000. It's not as good as it was, but there's still 10,000. God spoke to Gideon. "Gideon," said God, "there's still too many in your army." If I was Gideon, I would have been like, "Well, God, too many? There's only 10,000. What do you mean too many? Have you not seen the Midianites?" But Gideon listened. He listened carefully, and God gave him a plan. God said, "Gideon, go down to the river and get the men to drink. If anyone scoops water up and brings it to their lips like this, keeping their head up, send them over there. If they go down into the water, put their faces in the water and drink like a dog, send them over there." And that's what Gideon did. He put them into 2. 9,700 lapped water like a dog. 300 scooped it up and kept their chins up while they drank. And God spoke again, "Gideon, the ones that scooped the water, they're the ones to take." 32,000 men started off in this army, and now there were 300. The Midianites were the strongest people the Israelites had ever encountered. How could they be beaten by 300 weak Israelites, led by the weakest one of all? Well, God spoke to Gideon. Gideon sent the 9,700 home, and the 300 were in the army. And God gave Gideon a plan. It sounded crazy. Don't take a sword, don't take a shield, take a trumpet, take a torch. It sounded bananas. But Gideon listened, and he placed his trust in God's word. And Gideon told the men what to do. He said, "Right, we're going to split into three groups of 100. And this is what we'll do. We'll go at night, we'll go in silence, and we will take our trumpet, we'll take our torch, we'll put a bowl on the torch so no one can see the light from it. And we will sneak around the camp. And when I give the word, we put it into action. That's what they did. One night, Gideon gave the signal. The troops assembled in silence. They brought their trumpets in one hand, and in the other hand they held a torch that was covered by a bowl. And one by one, they snuck down. The first platoon went to the right, the second went to the left, and they spread around the camp, and the third filled the gap on the side. And there, with 300 men encircling the Midianite camp in the valley, they waited. And Gideon gave the signal. And at that moment, every man shouted and blew their trumpets, smashed the bowl, and the light of their torches lit up the Midianite camp. The Midianites were fast asleep, and they woke up. What's going on? We're being attacked! We're being attacked! They grabbed their swords and they began to fight in the darkness. And one by one, the Midianites were killed by each other. The Midianites wiped out their own army in the dark that night. Gideon and the army of the Lord was able to succeed because they trusted in God and his instructions. 300 men and Gideon were victorious that night.